All right, welcome to the explainer. So, you've got a Shearwater dive computer, right? Well, it's packed with these incredible safety features that, honestly, most people never even touch. Today, we're going to change that. We're going to unlock those features and turn you into a power user. That means diving safer and, maybe best of all, finally getting rid of that nagging post-dive fatigue.
You know, this quote just nails it perfectly. Leaving your computer on the default settings, it's like having a Ferrari in the garage and never, ever taking it out of second gear. You have this absolutely amazing piece of tech, but if you're just sticking with those factory settings, you're missing out on its best and, frankly, its safest features. So it's time we learn how to really open it up and shift gears.
Okay, so here's the plan. First, we'll look at your computer's secret weapon. Then we'll get into the science of your ascent. After that, we're decoding something called gradient factors, setting up your real-time dashboard, and finally putting it all together for way smarter, safer dives. All right, let's jump right in. We need to start with a really fundamental idea, one that changes how you think about diving. And it's this. Every single dive you do is a decompression dive. Yeah, even the ones that are well within the no-stop limits. Once you wrap your head around that, it's the key to preventing not just the big scary stuff, but also that really annoying post-dive fatigue that just hangs around. So here's the deal. By default, your computer is laser-focused on one thing, stopping the big bubbles. You know, the ones that cause decompression sickness, or DCS. And that's great, but it completely ignores the tiny little microbubbles. These are the culprits behind what we call decompression stress. That's that drained, just wiped out feeling you can get after a dive. Your computer, out of the box, isn't programmed to manage this, but the good news is you can. Okay, so to get a handle on those bubbles, both big and small, we first have to understand the core challenge of every single ascent you make. It's this constant balancing act, really, between two goals that are completely at odds with each other.
And here's the central dilemma every single time you head for the surface. On one hand, goal number one, you got to minimize bubble formation. To do that, you need to ascend slowly, right? Avoid those rapid pressure changes. But then you have goal number two. You need to get rid of the nitrogen in your system. And to do that efficiently, you need a big pressure difference, which means getting shallower, faster. See the problem? Go too slow, and you're not really off-gassing. Go too fast, and you get bubbles.
So the perfect ascent, the holy grail, is all about hitting this sweet spot. You've got to be getting shallower to maximize how much nitrogen you're getting rid of. But at the same time, you have to avoid those pressure spikes that cause too many bubbles or bubbles that are too big. So the big question is, how on earth do you find that exact spot?
Well, the answer, it lies in something called gradient factors. Now, don't let the name scare you off. It sounds super technical, but it's not. This is your number one tool for managing that balance we've been talking about. Think of it as your way of telling the computer exactly how you want to handle that pressure difference on the way up.
So, what are gradient factors, or GF? At their core, they're just two numbers, GF low and GF high, and these two numbers let you customize the algorithm in your computer. You can think of them as your personal conservatism dials. They're what you use to control that pressure difference and find that perfect sweet spot between getting rid of nitrogen and stopping bubbles from forming. Okay, so it's broken into two parts, but listen, for recreational diving, you really only need to worry about one of them, GF high. GF high, or GF high, sets your overall conservatism for the whole dive. Simple as that. A lower number means more safety. This is the one that really matters for us. Now, GF low, that sets the depth of your very first deco stop. So it's mostly for tech divers or if you find yourself in an emergency decompression situation. For today, GF high is the star of the show. And what's great is that Shearwater makes this super simple in recreational mode. You've got these presets. The default is medium, which gives you a pretty solid 15% safety margin right off the bat. But let's say you're doing a colder dive or it's a bit more strenuous, you can just flick it over to high and boom, you've got a 25% safety margin. It's just a dead simple, yet incredibly powerful way to add a safety buffer when you need it.
Okay, so we've set our overall conservatism before we even hit the water. That's step one. But now we get to the really cool part. This is where you go from being just a passenger on the dive to being the pilot by turning on two simple little displays. GF99 and SurGF, you're basically giving yourself a real-time dashboard that lets you make smarter decisions while you're in the water.
First up is GF99. I want you to think of this as your off-gassing speedometer. That's exactly what it is. It's a live number that tells you at your current depth, right this very second, how efficiently nitrogen is leaving your body. A higher GF99 number means nitrogen is leaving you faster. Simple as that. But there's the catch. Faster isn't always better. Pushing that GF99 number really high means you're off-gassing nitrogen like crazy, sure. But it also means you're creating more of those tiny microbubbles that lead to fatigue. If your GF99 is at 0, you're basically saturated. So the goal is to land in that sweet spot, that 1 to 49% range. It's high enough to be effective, but low enough to avoid that post-dive exhaustion.
Okay, the second number for our dashboard is SurGF. That stands for Surface Ingredient Factor. And this is your what-if number. It answers the question, what if I had an emergency and had to surface right now? That number is your real-time, right this second safety margin. And the lower your SurGF is, the safer you are. It's an absolutely incredible tool for understanding your actual risk at any given moment in the dive.
All right, now for the payoff. We've got the theory, we've set up our dashboard. Let's see how a real power user actually uses these two numbers, GF99 and SurGF, together in the water to make their dives safer, way more comfortable, and a heck of a lot more efficient. So let's talk about the good old safety stop. We all do it, right? 3 minutes at 5 meters. But is it always effective? Here's a super common problem. You get to your 5-meter stop, you're hanging out, and you look down at your computer. Your GF99, your off-gassing speedometer, is sitting at a measly 8%. That's really inefficient. You wait there for 3 minutes, and your actual safety margin, your SurGF, has only dropped by 2%. You've pretty much just wasted 3 minutes of air.
But here's the solution. The power user doesn't just blindly stop at 5 meters. Instead, you watch your GF99 as you ascend. You slowly come up until you find the depth. Maybe it's 3 meters, maybe it's 4, where that GF99 number jumps up to, say, 35%. Now you're in the sweet spot. You're off-gassing like a champ. And get this, in the same 3 minutes, your SurGF, your safety margin, drops by a huge 10%. You've just made your safety stop 5 times more effective. That's a game changer.
So here's a really simple rule of thumb you can use on your next dive. For your safety stop, just aim for a GF99 value that's somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of your preset GF high. So if you're using the default GF high of 85, you're looking for a depth that puts your GF99 somewhere between 28 and 42%. Just slowly ascend until you find that magic number. This guarantees your stop is actually actively removing nitrogen and reducing your risk.
And you can use SurGF to add safety on the fly, too. Let's say you're feeling a bit cold and you just want a bigger safety buffer. Your SurGF is at 85% when you get to your stop. No problem. You just hang out at that optimal depth for 3 minutes and you watch your SurGF tick down to 79%. You've just added a 6% margin. Want more? Stay another 3 minutes. Now it's down to 70. You are literally watching your safety margin grow in real time. All the guesswork is just gone.
And you know, this exact same logic works perfectly for multi-level dives. Instead of just moving up to whatever depth gives you a little more no-deco time, you can now use your GF99 to find a shallower depth that is actively and efficiently getting rid of nitrogen. You're not just extending your dive, you're making your entire dive profile so much safer. So, what's the big payoff for all this? Well, you're going to improve your safety from DCS, for sure. You're going to finally avoid that post-dive fatigue, that washed-out feeling. You'll optimize the depth and time of every single safety stop. You'll be able to conduct way more effective multi-level dives. And I think this is the best part. You'll gain this deep, intuitive feel for what's really happening with decompression on every single dive. You know, we started this whole thing talking about a Ferrari that was stuck in second gear. By understanding these settings, and more importantly, by using them, you've just learned how to unlock the full power and performance of your dive computer. You now have the keys. So the only question left is, on your very next dive, are you ready to finally shift gears? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.